With the India 2.0 project, Skoda Auto and Volkswagen Group plans a serious, huge offensive in the Indian auto segment. Welcome to Business World. I'm your host Siddharth, and today we are talking to Mr. Guru Pratap Boparai, Managing Director, Skoda Auto and Volkswagen India. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Siddharth.
So let's start this conversation with the business impact of COVID on Skoda Auto Volkswagen India.
Business impact has been more or less in line with everyone else. So the lockdown meant that we could neither, or at least the first phase of the lockdown meant that we could neither produce nor sell anything. It also happened at a time when the industry was moving from BS4 to BS6, and we had drained our pipeline of BS4 cars, and we were beginning to dispatch BS6 cars when this happened. So then clearly we lost over a month. For us, it was a little more because we also had to do some preparatory work in the plant for the next generation of cars, and that meant that we had some equipment to install, etc. So we lost another 3 months in Pune. Aurangabad resumed more or less when the rest of the industry resumed. So let's say we started our production from the 1st of June. And therefore, our volumes in April were zero, like everyone else's. May, we did a little better than the industry, even though we were still not producing, but yeah, we did a little better. In June, again, we did a little better than the industry. Of course, we are talking about a base that was already small. Last year wasn't a great year for the industry. So the things are improving now. We are on the manufacturing side. We are up to roughly 60% of what we were on production, 60 to 70%. Clearly, the impact has also been there in some of our export markets, so the production plans have also been adjusted to take care of that.
Sir, I would like to understand what kind of challenges did you face in terms of, say, manpower, labor, supply chain issues, and also various states and cities having their independent lockdowns and all that?
We had two big challenges. First was the equipment manufacturers typically employ a lot in equipment, as well as construction companies employ a lot of migrant labor. So those people started leaving, even though there was clampdown, etc. They started leaving. A lot of them left just before the lockdown happened, and therefore that obviously impacted our activities in the plant to install equipment, etc. When we were allowed to resume operations, there were a number of protocols to be followed, which automatically meant that we could start with a very low volume. And that's what we did. There were also many of our employees who were in containment zones, so they couldn't come. So logistically also, picking up people, and the containment zones were changing from one day to the other, and making sure you still had enough people was a challenge. The same challenge was there for our suppliers, a little more for them because many of them also had migrant workers who left. So all in all, it was a gradual, slow start, but things are better. But still, the social distancing norms mean that we cannot go above about 65% of our capacity.
Sir, as you know, the Prime Minister came up with Atmanirbhar program. So it's about being self-reliant and reducing dependency on imports and all. So what are the takeaways of the program? How are you leveraging on that? And also with the anti-China sentiments, will you be reducing your dependence on Chinese imports? I'm talking about the components.
So, roughly 2% of our parts come from China. And our next projects will have even a higher level of localization. The Chinese component still remains about 2%, but our localization level goes up to 92 to 93%. And then within a year of start of production, it goes up to 95%. So already we were localizing a lot, but our sub-suppliers do import, and some of them may also import from China. There are certain categories of components that are just not available in India. Certain sensors, certain electronic components especially, are just not available in India. For others, the Chinese suppliers are more competitive. Even with a 15% customs duty, their landed cost is less than our own Indian suppliers. So I think those things need to be looked at holistically. They need to be addressed over the medium to long term. Over the short term, it would be extremely difficult to stop importing everything from China. Plus, I think this particular crisis will blow over. What we have to do has to be more strategic. It has to be more long term. Having said that, in a globalized world, even the supply chains are globalized. I don't think it is in the interest of any economy to attempt to produce everything themselves.
And sir, what are the takeaways from this Atmanirbhar policy? How Skoda Auto Volkswagen India Private Limited is going to leverage on that? I mean, are you going to handhold your suppliers who come under the MSME ambit, or are you going to expand your export horizons? What are the takeaways? If you can talk a little bit about that.
So far, the Atmanirbhar policy hasn't given any incentive for somebody to localize. There's only been a disincentive to import. And I think we need to, for certain, and this is something that we are also discussing with the Ministry of Heavy Industry as SIAM, that for certain sectors, the scale is not there. Sensors are made and ECUs, etc., are made in millions. Our market is not big enough to absorb or provide that kind of scale. And therefore, that means that we have to also, whoever comes here will have to also export from here. Yeah. Now, what do we need to do to attract those companies, especially on the electronics sector, on making tools and dies? So those are the things that we need to work on, and these things are done in the medium term. They can't be achieved in the short term. In the short term, we will only end up hurting ourselves and the consumers if we, take a very aggressive stance on these things. Plus, like I said, there is not much efficiency in saying that we will produce everything ourselves. You need to have a market, you need to have a scale. So whoever does things on a larger scale will always be more competitive than you. Because we are not just saying we want to be self-reliant, we also want to be big exporters. To be a big exporter, you will have to leverage global supply chains. Our next project is 93% localized, with bringing in new technology. To make those cars, we needed equipment which we normally would have imported. We actually got European suppliers to come and tie up with Indian suppliers so that they could make the same capital equipment at a lower cost than they would have in Europe. So we've gone to those extents. Even before Atmanirbhar Bharat was declared, because before that there was Make in India, and we have always supported that.
Sir, now staying on the same lines of Atmanirbhar Bharat, What kind of support or do you need from the government in terms of taxation, in terms of policies, in terms of vehicles to generate demand?
So I think demand generation is a big question mark. A number of steps have been taken to ease liquidity. Also, a lot of steps will be taken on infrastructure, etc. So infrastructure development definitely will give a boost to commercial vehicles. But passenger car vehicles, I think some support may be required. Yeah? Also, it's not enough for the market to come back to 2019 levels. 2019 was 18% down on 2018. Everyone's projections were that we'll grow 10-12% every year. Yeah. So if you made plans in 2017 or 2018 and you invested accordingly, you were looking at a much bigger market. So I'm sure the headlines once, and it could happen in July itself, the headlines would be, the auto market has recovered if we do the same numbers as last year. No, it hasn't. Last year was 17% down when it should have been 10% up. Yeah, so 18% down when it should have been 10% up. So there is still a big deficit there. Secondly, I think if we want to be a big export player, domestically we have to stop favoring small cars, because small cars represent just 6% of the global, or 6 or 7% of the global car market, the sub 4 meter car. Globally, they aren't much of a segment. If we want to be an export powerhouse, then we can't keep focusing on such a small segment. Global players, and they're the ones who have the best possibility to export out of India, because they already have presence in various markets with established dealer networks and established brands. They're the ones who have the best possibility. They wouldn't come to India with a big vehicle that has a volume potential only of, let's say, a few thousand units in a year, and make India an export base. You come to India to serve the domestic market and also then leverage India's low cost base. So you want players who have greater export potential. You need to start also looking at doing away with the differential in taxation between sub 4 meter cars and bigger cars, because frankly there's not much of a market, like I said, for sub 4 meter cars globally. It's just 7% of the total pie. So that really needs to happen for us to start manufacturing on a global scale.
I also want to know your viewpoint on the GST on automobiles, because it's one of the highest. It's almost as bad as cigarettes.
So not as bad as cigarettes, because just the GST. It's the cess that takes it up. Yeah? And that cess is on the bigger cars. The sub 4 meter have just 1% cess. Yeah. Whereas the bigger cars, the cess goes from 15 to 23%. And add to that, the higher value cars also in some states attract 20% registration fee, as opposed to 10 for the smaller. So it's very, the bigger cars are very highly taxed. That definitely needs to change. On the short term, yes, we are not a country that should be subsidizing personal mobility. I am the first one to admit that. But to kickstart demand, maybe that 10% reduction in GST that everyone is suggesting could be a way out, clearly stating that this is for a limited period of 9 months or 1 year. That definitely will get demand going.
Sir, on the same lines, government has also is also against diesel with the 10-year ban on diesel vehicles. So, do you think implementation of a scrappage policy would also start the demand generation process?
Yes, it would. But the scrappage discounts have to be attractive enough for people. Normally, people who are using a 10 or 15-year-old car, their buying capacity is not that much. Otherwise, they would have bought a newer one sooner. So we've got to understand that also. So the discounts on scrappage have to be, the incentives on scrappage have to be substantial. It could be a far lower GST or maybe even no GST on a car that you're scrapping and replacing with a new one. Otherwise, if it is just a few percentage points, 2-3%, it may not be attractive enough. Or people with older cars may not even have the means. I don't think we will be able to have a compulsory scrappage of cars 10 years old. That probably will not be politically possible. Yeah, there are some states, some places like Delhi that have banned cars older than 10 years if they're diesel or 15 years if they're petrol. It's not a nationwide policy yet.
Sir, as I'm sure you're, following very closely, the government was very gung-ho about electric vehicles. At one point of time, they said all electric vehicles parked by 2030. But later on, they backtracked and, FAME 2 has also not taken off in a bigger manner as expected. So, do you think, the EV revolution is being impeded, and as a result, will you reduce your focus on EVs going forward because you are making multi-billion euro investments? So, is it safe to assume that right now you're not focusing on EVs, your focus is more on, ICE vehicles and all? If you can talk a little bit about that.
So I don't think government in any official capacity said that we have 100% EVs by 2030. It was a report by some American think tank called Rocky Mount Institute, which said that, by the way, they never gave this report in their own country, and nobody would listen to them there. But the affordability question around EVs has to be addressed first before they become mass market. If you even look at the sub 4 meter segment, where you have 29% taxation, we'll go to bigger ones later. 29% taxed petrol vehicle versus an similar sized electric vehicle with a decent range. And when I mean decent range, say about 200 kilometers actual. Any 250 kilometer car in test cycle would probably on every day running to about 200. Yeah? So if you look at those, the cost even with just 5% GST on the electric vehicle is still almost double of the petrol equivalent. Our consumers are extremely cost sensitive. The economics of EVs doesn't work yet. I'm not saying it won't work. It doesn't work yet in India. The government obviously realizes that till the economics of EVs work, it's going to be difficult to make them mass. But that shouldn't stop people from entering those segments or establishing themselves, establishing the acceptance of those products. So we will start with higher end cars next year, and then we will look at smaller cars as we go ahead. Clearly, Volkswagen has taken the lead in investing into e-mobility, and we will be part of that when the market acceptance and affordability is there.
Yeah. So talking about investments, Skoda and Volkswagen Group had said that they will invest 250 million euros in R&D in India, a part of the 1 billion euro investment. So, sir, what is the update on this, and are there any fresh investments planned this year?
So 250 million was total investment, not all of it in India. In India, it's about 55 million that we'll end up doing in India of R&D. So not all of it, all of the 250 was in India. So that is committed, and that has already started, and let's say by end of 2021 it would have been, or early 2022 it would have been completed. Similarly, the other investment that we had announced on the 2.0 project for localization of the MQB platform and 4 cars on that will also get completed by 2022. So we are on track with those investments.
So the India 2.0 initiative, I want you to explain this in a very simple manner for our viewers. What is the India 2.0 initiative from Skoda Volkswagen Group? What does the user or the buyer get out of it? And as a country, what is the group going to do in this particular program?
So under this particular program, we are going to localize one of the best platforms in the Volkswagen Group called the MQB A0, which can make cars from 4 meters up to roughly 4.3, 4.4 meter long. So a versatile platform. Along with that, we will have the best petrol engines available in the market, turbocharged direct injection engines, the TSI engines, highly efficient and really for spirited driving. So best of both the worlds. So we are getting the latest technology into India, and the high level of localization that we are doing will ensure that all this technology comes also at an affordable price.
So, I mean, sir, you have already answered it partly. You said that, that you just confirmed that you're making multi-billion euro investment in India. But what makes you confident for making the investment when A, the economy is in recession, B, there are job losses, C, the auto industry is also reeling under a slowdown? If you can just shed some light on that, how do you remain buoyant despite market turbulence not in favor of any car maker?
So the investment obviously was kicked off and under different circumstances. Once you have gotten to a certain stage in the project, it doesn't make any sense to delay it or to stop it. It's best to continue with it. So we are continuing with it. And that is why we want a demand stimulus. Because like I said, 2018, 2017, when we were discussing and working on this project, which finally got approved in 2018, 2019 was supposed to be 10% more than 2018, and then 2020 was another 10%. We are not anywhere there, and therefore it is important for the government to give some stimulus. Having said that, we are fairly confident of coming close to our projected volumes because we feel the products are really good. The customers will appreciate them, and I think we'll sell well. But yeah, if the market improves significantly and faster, we could do even better.
So one of the byproducts of Make in India is creating jobs apart from exports. So how many people would you be looking to employ? And because of COVID, will you be axing people from your workforce or reducing the headcount, especially across the manufacturing facilities? Or it is the other way around, you're going to make more investments? Or will it be automation across the manufacturing facilities? If you can talk a little bit about that.
As of now, we do have excess manpower because of the current situation. We are not going to lay off anyone. We haven't laid off one person, and we won't lay off anyone. We are utilizing our people to work smartly, work in towards contributing to savings in the project, savings in daily operations, and I think that is working fine. Going forward, we would have between ourselves and our suppliers roughly generating 5,000 jobs, and we are on track for that.
So the Indian auto sector has been struggling for the past couple of years, and then there was BS6 transformation. Now in future there is going to be CAFE norms, and then in between now we are in COVID. So how confident are you from the group's perspective about India's Skoda Volkswagen's India journey?
See, India is a country and an economy that has held out great promise for many years now. Unfortunately, we have not fully realized that promise and that potential. But I think COVID is a blip. It will go away. We need to see how quickly our economy as a whole will recover and get back to where we were earlier and then beyond that. But surely there is going to be a setback and there is going to be a delay for most manufacturers in capacity addition, definitely, but also maybe introduction of new products in new segments that may get delayed a little bit.
Sir, you have already mentioned about VW's platforms that would be coming up with. It's largely centered on SUVs. So, do we? Since you're not coming out with any product which is in the entry-level hatchback segment, or for example, a premium compact car. So, do we see the end of the road for small cars when it comes to the Skoda VW umbrella, and only there would be focus on SUVs? And if it's SUVs, are you still confident of SUVs? Because many people are saying they are not going to take their vehicle for weekend getaways, unlike earlier, thanks to COVID. Your thoughts?
COVID will go away in a year, so weekend getaways will be there for sure. Weekend getaways not necessarily require an SUV, but that's the preferred shape of body style that, across the globe. So India is not unique in that. It's not that we will be only doing SUVs, but yes, SUVs will be a thrust as it is for us across the globe. But we will not abandon other body styles. In fact, in 2022, we will also have sedans coming up. As to the smaller cars, we will get there too. Right now, we'll start with in 2021-22 with over 4 meter cars, but we'll get down to below 4 meters also if the policy continues to favor those cars. But frankly, it's not something that is in the interest of the nation, as if we want to become a big exporter. We need to get to where the meat of the global market is.
Right, sir. So now, as the group head of Skoda and Volkswagen Group, what do you think is the road to recovery for the complete Indian auto industry?
First, we need to see how bad this year will get. There are various projections of being down by 20 to 30%, anywhere between 20 and 30%. I think we as a nation should aim not to get to minus 30. And the government needs to do everything to make sure we don't get to minus 30, because minus 30 means we will go to volumes that are below 2010 levels. It's something that will scare off investment big time. So we need to also show that we also need to attain good growth next year. and not just 10%. 10% over this year is nothing. We won't even get to 2019 volumes with that, leave alone 2018, which so far has been the best year. So it really has to be high double-digit growth going from here for the next 2, 3, 4 years to catch up with all that we've lost in the last 2 years. So I think the government needs to act on that and make sure that this growth does happen.
Now, one question on a lighter note. So Skoda Volkswagen Group has always been bringing cars which are exotic, even though they don't have that big a market share, like the Octavia RS 245 and then the Polo GTI. And also Volkswagen has been really a big part of Indian motorsport as well. So do we see more such cars or more initiatives in terms of motorsports from the group going forward?
Yeah, so our commitment to motorsport in India will continue, and we will continue to get exciting cars for our customers, even though the segment is small. But we will continue to do that. I think it's motorsport always drives technological excellence, whether it is today with IC engines or increasingly with electric cars. Definitely, we want to be part of it.
Thank you for talking to us, Mr. Boparai. It was a great, insightful conversation. Stay safe, sir.
Siddharth, it was a pleasure. And Abhishek, take care. Both of you stay safe.